heredity, genes and behavior. We can be shaped by our family and friends, as well as the environment we live in. We can also be shaped by our genes, which are the specific instructions that are passed down to us from our parents. The biology affects behavior through mechanisms of heredity. It is regulated by genetic principles. Some behavior are called innate. It comes from your genes. But other behavior is learned. That is from interacting with the world or by being taught. Before going to the details, please remember to subscribe this channel. Thank you. Heredity. Heredity is a process of passing the traits and characteristics from parent to children through genes. So, the characteristics are passed from parents towards the offspring. The offspring get their feature and characteristic from the mother and father. That is from one generation to the another generation. For example, the hair color, it is same in father and the child, but the hair structure is same like mother's. Then if you see the ear style and the eye, it is same as father's. So some characteristics are from the father and some characteristics are from the mother. The heredity and genetics are the reason you look so much like your parents. Some traits may be acquired. Some are transferred. Those transferred are known as the innate quality, and those acquired are known as the acquired traits, and it cannot be inherited. It cannot be passed through the genetic material from one generation to the another. For example, if your mom or your father built a strong muscle through years of marathon running, then that means he acquired that, or he or she acquired that quality, and it is not inherited to you. The strong leg muscles are acquired and it is not inherited. If you want strong muscle, then you need to do vigorous exercise, running or whatever it is. You cannot get that kind of qualities from your parents. So heredity is the process of passing the traits and characteristics from parent to children, and it is through the genes. What is genetics? It is the branch of science that studies the DNA, genes, genetic variation and heredity in living organisms. DNA is the molecule of heredity and genes are the unit of heredity. The famous inheritance law was formulated by Gregor Mendel, who was given the title Father of Genetics. So, Gregor Mendel is the father of genetics. He was a scientist who came up with his pea experiment to find out and prove the meaning of heredity. The cells of most living organisms have DNA, which is the substance that make up your genes. When cells reproduce, they can pass down the DNA molecule or the genetic information to the next generation. For example, your cells have the genetic material that determines if you have a blonde hair or a black hair. Your genotype is the genes inside the cell. And your phenotype is the physical traits that are visible and influenced by both genes and the environment. So, the genes inside the cell are known as your genotype, and based on that gene, what physical traits you are exhibiting, or what are your characteristics that can be seen, it is known as the phenotype, and it is influenced by the environment also. There are variations among the genes. So the DNA sequence differ. Genetic variation make the people unique. So this is a human cell, and each cell contains chromosome, and each cell has nucleus, and this nucleus contains chromosome, and chromosome look like this, and this chromosome is made up of DNA, and a part of DNA is known as the gene. So this genes contains your genetic makeup, and it is known as the genotype, and the characteristic you are exhibiting is known as the phenotype. And the father of genetics is Gregor Mendel, and genetics is the study or the branch of science that deals with DNA, genes, genetic variation, heredity, etc. Chromosome. Chromosome is a thread-like structure, and it is located in the nucleus of cells. It is seen in plants, animals, and human cells. Each chromosome is made up of molecule known as DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid, and histone proteins. Its unique structure keeps the two DNA strands tightly wrapped around the histone proteins. So these are histone proteins, and these histone proteins are tightly wrapped by the DNA strands. The DNA is packaged into chromosome, or a chromosome is the bundle of tightly coiled DNA. So this tightly coiled DNA makes up the chromosome. DNA is wrapped multiple times around the histone proteins, and it is known as a histone octamer because it is made up of 8 histone molecules, 4 above and 4 below. The structure formed due to the wrapping of DNA around the histone protein is known as nucleosome. So the DNA, it is wrapped around the histone proteins, and together it is known as a nucleosome. The nucleosome are densely packed to form chromatin. So several nucleosome together known as chromatin, and it coils up tightly to make chromatin loops. These loops further wrap around each other, and this chromatin becomes highly folded to make a full chromosome. So DNA, it is wrapped around histone, and it is known as nucleosome, and densely packed nucleosome is known as a chromatin, and again this is highly folded to make a full chromosome. So this is the structure of chromosome. The shape of the chromosome varies from species to species. The number of chromosome also varies. Its number is same for all the cells in a given species. For example, in human beings, all the cells contains 23 pair of chromosomes. Or it can be said 46 chromosomes arranged in 23 pairs. In these 23 pairs, 22 are autosomes and one pair is sex chromosome. XX for female and XY for male. Likewise, the fruit fly has 4 pair of chromosome, rice plant has 12 pair of chromosome, and a dog has 39 pair of chromosome. Human beings have 23 pair of chromosomes. Every species has its own characteristic number of chromosomes. Each parent provides one chromosome to make a pair, so that children get half of the chromosome from father and half from mother. One set of chromosome come from father and the other set come from the mother. and it forms a pair. The major function of the chromosome is to provide stability to DNA. So, the chromosome provides stability to the DNA. So, it is a major function. Then, it ensures that the DNA replicate and distribute equally during cell division. So, the DNA replicate and distribute equally during cell division. This function is also ensured by the chromosome. So, two major functions are providing stability and to ensure the replication of the DNA. And this is the basic structure of a chromosome. 8 histones, it is wrapped tightly by the DNA and it is known as nucleosome, and the densely thick nucleosome is known as chromatin, and this chromatin again highly folded to make up a chromosome. Gene. What is a gene? It is the basic physical and functional unit of heredity, and it is made up of DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. So, this chromosome, it is made up of tightly coiled DNA, and the length of DNA which codes for the production of protein is known as a gene. So, genes are a length of DNA. We have two sets of genes in our body, one from each parent, that is one from mother and one from father. DNA is the molecule of heredity, and genes are the unit of heredity. So, DNA are the molecule and genes are the unit. Some genes act as instructions to make molecule called protein. Each chromosome contains many genes. In human, genes vary in size from few hundred DNA base to more than 2 million base. So, each of the gene can be formed maybe with a few hundred DNA or maybe with more than 2 million DNA bases. DNA is a double helix formed by the base pair attached to sugar phosphate backbone. So, the information stored in DNA is with the help of 4 chemical bases. And these chemical bases are adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine. The human DNA consists of about 3 billion bases, and more than 99% of the bases are same in all people. The order or the sequence, it may change, and this determines the information available for an organism. For example, in words and sentence, the same alphabet repeat, but it appear in a certain order. Likewise, these 4 bases are there and it appear in certain order to form a certain base pair, and these base pair that determine the information about an organism. The DNA bases pair up with each other, adenine with thymine and guanine with cytosine. Each base is attached to sugar molecule and phosphate molecule. Together this base, this sugar and phosphate molecule is known as a nucleotide. The important property of DNA, it can replicate. So it is the important property of the DNA. It can make copies of itself or it can replicate. Then genetic mutation. What is mutation? They are alterations of DNA, genes or chromosomes that can occur during the replication or cell division. We have seen the basic or the important property of the DNA is it has the capacity to make copies or it can replicate. So during this replication, changes can occur in DNA or genes or in chromosome, and this is known as mutation. Mutations are of several types. Changes within the genes is known as a point mutation, and the mutation that span more than one gene is called a chromosomal mutation. So, mutation can occur within a gene or within a chromosome. Within a gene, if a mutation happens, it is known as point mutation, and if it is within more than one gene, it is chromosomal mutation. So, this is about gene. Let's have a quick recap on what we have learned. Heredity. It is the process of passing the traits and characteristics from parents to offsprings through genes. Genetics is a branch of science that studies the DNA, genes, genetic variation and heredity in living organisms. Then chromosome. It is a thread-like structure that located in the nucleus of cells. That is, consider if this is a human cell and each cell has a nucleus and each nucleus contains 23 pair of chromosomes. These chromosomes are made up of tightly coiled DNA. This DNA is the basic molecule and it includes 4 base chemicals. And a length of DNA is known as a gene. DNA is the basic physical and functional unit of heredity. These genes are made up of DNA. Heredity is important to all living organisms because it determines which traits are passed from parent to child. Successful traits are more frequently passed along and over time can change a species. An understanding of the human heredity is of critical importance in the prediction, diagnosis and treatment of disease that have genetic component. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe and share. Thank you and keep smiling.